Compass just announced that it is buying the Anywhere brand of real estate for $1.6 billion. On the surface, this is a massive headline, a deal that could create a 340,000 agent powerhouse in the industry. But let's flip the script. Compass, who reported $81.6 million in debt obligations just in quarter two of 2025, is taking on Anywhere's $2.1 billion plus a $750 million bridge loan to make this work, all while being a brokerage with just 25,000 agents, acquiring an umbrella of companies of a brokerage already housing 300,000 agents. Paints a very different picture, doesn't it? And yes, this will affect agents, but only the ones who care enough to look beyond the headlines and understand the ramifications that are in front of us. We're going to break all this down and more today on the Real Estate Agent Playbook. I want to first start this off by saying there is going to be some positives. There are some positives to Compass taking over a brand such as the Anywhere brand, which houses Sotheby's, ERA, Better Homes and Gardens, Coldwell Banker, among others. And the honest truth is there will be positives, there will be negatives, just as in any acquisition. And I'm not here to tell you that this is going to completely destroy the industry or be the greatest thing ever. What I'm here to do is break down the differences and talk to you a little bit about options that may occur for you, whether you're inside the Anywhere brand or maybe outside. So first and foremost, I really want to hammer in on these 340,000 agents, a decent amount that are national and another 140,000 that are international that could be affected. Compass's brand was not in all 50 states and was, for the most part, a luxury market specific brand. Denver, the southern states, Seattle, New York, and so on. And so as we look at this, and people are hammering home this 340,000 agents, well, the truth is that the Anywhere brand housed, over 300,000 agents alone. And so this huge behemoth of a brokerage umbrella has always been there. Now, arming them with some of the tech things that Compass offers and so on is, something that could make that 300,000 agent brokerage or umbrella a little bit more powerful. And I understand that. But the fact that it's just because of sheer numbers alone that we're saying this could be a monopoly and all of this stuff, well, adding 25,000 agents estimated to this from the Compass brand doesn't really make a lot of sense to, that being the thing that pushed the 300,000 person brokerage over the edge. I get it. Tech is different, and Compass is very tech forward. Compass does have several irons in the fire with Clear Cooperation and Zillow and all of those things, and so I understand why looking at this and the headlines that there's going to be this one exclusive agency to list with because it's all going to go exclusive. The truth is that even within Compass, their exclusive offerings are only used by a certain percentage. And that's where this kind of breaks down. A lot of these, agencies and 340,000 agents in the Anywhere brand, yes, there is luxury markets. Obviously, Sotheby's is a very luxury recognized brand. Coldwell Banker has their luxury department and so on. But the majority of those agents are not in luxury markets, so to speak. And so when we're stepping back and looking at this and, the exclusivity of the exclusive marketing platforms that, have been in the news, I'm not sure that, that is going to, articulate to the grand majority of those 340,000 agents. Not to say that they have to use it. The current Compass setup does not have to go exclusive, and there are, different things that happen for each of those. But when you really start to look at this as an international piece, the exclusivity of marketing a, quote unquote luxury listing just isn't, the best for a lot of these different markets. So that's the first thing I want to say. Yes, there may be some, fear of that and, let Compass and Zillow do their thing. The real key here is the MLS disruption. And will the 340,000 agents and the agent voices, stand for, trying to depopulate the MLS. I don't think that's, where we're going. I don't think that that's in its nature. And if you want my honest opinion, the MLS system has needed a rejuvenation or a restructure for a long time, right? Doesn't make any sense to have, neighboring counties on different MLSs and things like that. But that's neither here nor there. As we see, let's focus on this MLS disruption, right? Worry less about, if all these listings are going on this side or that side or whatever. But when the MLS starts to break down, that's when we'll really see real industry change, in my opinion. So on a global scale, does it make sense for, the house and wherever in a farm town in the middle of Iowa, does it make sense for that one to only be seen by, people that are housed and have access to, this brokerage's network? I mean, I don't think that makes a lot of sense from the consumer. And honestly, I don't think that agent from the Compass brand or the Anywhere brand or even my brand would suggest like we should go exclusive with this, because in those smaller populated areas, there's less buyers. So we need to make sure we're getting in front of as many eyes as possible. And so I think that there's a rush to conclusions here of why they're doing this and that. And I think when we step back and look at it and look at the population and the breakdown and the densities of different markets, that, this isn't just going to be a one size fits all acquisition. I think a lot of the, information that is out there is really focused on this 340,000 agent piece, but I really also want to talk about how this was performed, right? A $1.6 billion purchase. This is an all stock purchase. So it's not like, there was other, they're incurring more debt. Obviously they're taking on the 2.1 from Anywhere within the deal. But when we're talking about stock purchases and purchasing with debt or purchasing debt and creating that piece, we have to really step back and say, okay, how is this going to affect the players that are inside the stock portfolio, the players that are outside? And the truth is that the, same old names are kind of dialed in there. And I think that that's, the Vanguards, the Fidelities, the this, that, they owned all the companies. They own some of my companies. They own, both of these brands in, certain stock portfolios. And so this is something that we have to kind of step back and look at. The real, thing that comes up here that I'm looking at is the institutional ownership, right? Where, for instance, the institutional ownership of Compass is around 75%, where the institutional ownership of Anywhere is around 96%. And then you have companies like EXP that are cloud-based that, the institutional ownership is, 40%. And we start to kind of look at the insider ownership and how this looks. And, the truth is that when we step back and look at this, and there's something called float in this process, which is essentially the, ability for an individual to actually purchase this stock, right? Making it more, market-based and not as, institutionalized. The truth is that Anywhere has an institutional float rate over 100%, meaning it's very hard for an individual to, make a ton of changes within this. It's just kind of what it is, meaning that it's really controlled mostly by Wall Street. And, as we kind of step back and we talk about, some of the other cloud-based brokerages, I'll use mine just because, we have insider ownership where the founder of the company and, his family owns, approximately 40% of, the stock. And then you have some institutional ownership, in this case about 30 or 40%, and so the institutions don't have quite as much power. So ultimately at Compass and Anywhere, Wall Street, like now especially, kind of are making the plays. They're the major players in the ownership group, whereas at EXP, an agent can own this and they own the company as well as some of the insiders, which happen to be the founder and so on. So it's a little bit more fluid. It's a little bit more, accessible to the general public or the individual instead of the institutional, Wall Street big dogs. So let's talk about that. The EXP difference, right? Ownership, having a little bit of power. Every different thing that's happened within EXP and, as it pertains to agent life and so on, is taken back to the agents themselves through the different leadership groups, through whatever. Not every single 90,000 of us, but there are groups that, they're running ideas by. When co-sponsorship came, that was something that was, put together in large part as a group effort by, the corporate leadership team, as well as, the top leaders in the company. This is something that shows that the agents have a little bit more power. They have a little bit more say against something like, a Wall Street investor heavily owned and influenced operation. The next piece is the revenue share model, right? At EXP, we're not going out and acquiring brokerages for high dollar amounts and anything like that. You've never seen EXP acquires anything for any amount of money. And so that's something that we have to take into account and understand what that looks like, right? In any acquisition or any, compensation agreement for going to, a different brokerage or bringing a brokerage over, or whatever that looks like, there is winners and losers, right? If you're an agent who is compensated with stock or whatever, or an agency that is compensated and that money doesn't trickle down to the agents that you bring over, well, then there's always that back and forth. It's like, oh, that person got paid to go there and, that incentive is great for them, but what's in it for the little guy? And within the EXP brokerage model, there is none of that. There's not a lot of that back and forth. For the most part, every agent is on the same split, right? Yes, there are team, split cap models that are a little bit different, that have a whole different set of, rules and that kind of stuff, but there's no favors being handed out. So everyone is truly on a level playing field, but then they have the opportunity to bring agents in, right? And yes, I understand that there's, different incentives at different brokerages to bring agents in, just nothing like the cloud-based brokerage that, EXP kind of, shepherd into our industry. And that's why we have the largest, cloud-based brokerage. It has a revenue share model to this day. And so as we're continuing to talk about this, the agents just have a little bit more control. The agents control the growth. The agents get compensated when those agents that come in, close deals. And as those agents bring agents on, they're able to be in this revenue share model. And there's just more control. And some people look at it as like, oh, I don't want to be a recruiter. I don't want to do that. However, they're paying for it, right? These companies have recruiters. If you were a owner of one of the stocks that, was involved in this huge acquisition, on one side, Anywhere went up a little bit. On the other side, Compass went down. But ultimately, they dissolved the stock 28%, right? Because now with the merger, the 28% of the stock that's offered to Compass, to the Anywhere people that come over is a huge deal, and it's a huge, shot to dissolution of the stock, which is fine. And overall, they have a plan to get rid of the debt, and who knows which way the stock will go. But within EXP, if there's not this excess money going out and this merger and combining of stocks, the agents are in more control. And that's where it is. That's why it's an agent-centric brokerage. That's why, that model stands. As an agent at EXP, if I close a certain amount of transactions, I get awarded stock. I get awarded stock for closing one transaction in my first transaction of my cap reset. I get, compensated in an award every time I cap. And so as we're kind of breaking this down, we're like, okay, how's this work? And why is there zero debt with this company and, excess amount of debt now with this massive company? Well, the cloud-based brokerage model eliminates the brick and mortar, eliminates a lot of that stuff. And that's where it steps in, and the agent may, be compensated a little bit more fairly or not. just depends on what you're looking at, what you're trying to do with your business, and how you operate. In addition to growing debt-free, EXP also is international. And this is something that we dive deep into with Natalie Salas, who will be on the show on Friday. So stay tuned for that one. But being an international growth organization and understanding how, through the trials and tribulations of international growth, EXP has built a model to not bring just influencers to run countries and start countries, but actual producing agents and brokers, which has been an absolute game changer when it comes to EXP success growing on the global markets. And so as, Compass has acquired, a large international organization now, this is something that, again, it's, corporate growth versus, organic growth through agents. And it's going to be a very interesting ride. And, a lot of people are saying this is terrible for the industry. This is terrible for the consumer. Let's just wait and see how it plays out, because I think a lot of people are sitting back and saying, well, it's going to be one way. Well, I think that, the Anywhere brand operated very separately of each other. There's franchise models in there. There's all different kinds of models in that umbrella. And those brands are very separate. If you didn't, know that they were owned by the same parent company, you wouldn't know, right? There's nothing boots on the ground, and the consumer probably will not. So until the Compass brand comes in and completely changes the game, which I don't think they would do, I don't think that's, acquisitions 101 is not come in and just, overtake everything. Now, the infusion of some tech may be good for the industry as a whole, may be good for the consumer as a whole. But I also wouldn't just jump to a conclusion and say they're going to come in and it's going to be this brand this way across the board, because that model doesn't fit the franchise models compared to, the brokerage models that they have. So ultimately, mostly brick and mortar there. And that's, kind of the difference right now is, where the industry's going. It very well could be half and half. I don't think that the mom and pops are completely out of the mix as far as the small brokerage shops or the independent brokers. I don't think that, it's going to make any difference, because let's remember that the Anywhere Corporation umbrella of real estate group had over 300,000 agents already. And so by just adding the 25,000 and, some tech, I don't think it's just going to overnight push it out. I think the real differences will come with, the different settlements with NAR and, Zillow and all of those things. I think that's where we really need to watch and pay attention. And I think the first, kind of sign of, okay, maybe, we're seeing a real change will be if the MLSs start to, get affected and, this exclusive listing stuff does kind of take shape. So we'll keep an eye on it. Like I said, change is good. Not a lot of people like it, but for the industry, it's absolutely something to consider. If you're part of it, if you're inside of it, outside of it, want to have a conversation, and you're able to have a conversation, please reach out to me directly. We can have those conversations and just see what's a better fit, because ultimately, as an independent contractor, you have the ultimate choice. And, as for now, there's all kinds of different options for you, and I think there will be going forward. But I'm looking to partner with the most amazing agents that want to build business like I have built it. And no matter where you're at, we can have a conversation. So please book a call below. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'll stay up to date on this situation, but typically we talk about growing your business organically and absolutely crushing real estate. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.